founder stage. Well, you are not founders of startups, but still I'm going to put you under the same pressure. I'm going to give you a minute to pitch what you do and why your company, your organization. And then we're going to go already into details about what you offer. Okay? I'll give Fatou the first opportunity.
Thank you, Maarika. Actually, I'm founder of Bootstrap Europe. We are a venture debt fund investing all over Europe in technology startups. Essentially, we come alongside VC funds and we lend to companies like Planet 42, for example, who think that debt is a good tool in their financing arsenal. We are based in Zurich and London. We are now investing out of our third fund. We've worked with tens and tens of founders, helping them to dilute less in their companies. We've worked with also hundreds of VCs, helping them to keep most of their investments when it works. I would say our key thing is that we are a team of entrepreneurs ourselves, right? So Bootstrap is the third company that we set up with my partner, Stephanie, because we found that there was a gap in the market. When we set up over 10 years ago, there was not a lot of venture debt available. We needed some for one of our companies in Sweden who's doing artificial intelligence, and we had to get it from the US. So we thought, let's do a homegrown solution in Europe. And that's what we did. So why us? Because we keep it really entrepreneurial. We understand what founders have gone through, and we help them leverage their success. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. And Pavils, please.
Great. Yeah, so SEB launched a venture debt product in April this year. After having the product in Stockholm for 4 years, we have 3 venture capital teams and the venture debt team in Stockholm, and we over the over time the startup scene has been,
sorry, we're losing the mic a little.
Maybe I'm leaning on my device. Yeah, so we saw that there is an opportunity. Baltic founders are really hardworking and really good with their capital, and really interesting ideas come out of it. So we want, as SEB, to be more present with Baltic founders. Help them finance their ideas, and we're a bank, so we really want to bank you for a long time. Yeah, that's our pitch. Thank you.
Very good. And maybe I'll follow up on this is that maybe you want to do a little overview of what you see as a bank as well, what's happening currently in the startup scene in the Baltics.
Yeah, they like I say, this is like a golden maybe opportunity for investors in the Baltics when the founders are not, shall we say, not spoiled, very energetic, very hardworking, very efficient with the capital. And this is I know a VC who is super proud having very efficient founders in their portfolio. This is a great time to finance the companies very early on, and seeing them grow later and achieve great results with a small amount of funding. That's one. And yeah, of course, it's a slightly maybe more difficult time now to raise funds than it was a couple of years ago. And we feel that we have several conversations already with companies that maybe are looking to bridge to their next round through using venture debt. And maybe we'll come to the use cases later. But overall, we're super positive. We think this is a long-term growth story of Baltic venture scene, and we want to be part of it. Yeah, we are very bullish.
Yeah. Very good, very positive indeed.
Yeah.
Fatou, so how is it in Europe? Because as you are based in 3 places, Luxembourg, Zurich, London, you see the overall EU markets. So what has been happening post 2020 with the investment scene?
Yeah, if we go back to 2020 and 2021, which were very exuberant years, I think when we started, there were about 5 billion invested in Europe in technology. And in 2021, when we reached the top, it was 100 billion. Just to tell you, equity has increased fivefold over that period. So it was really insane. The amount of capital, the willingness of people to take risk and create companies, the ideas. I mean, Europe has really made a place for itself globally when it comes to technologies like fintech, climate tech. It is a European specialty. What we see is that we also have repeat founders. I think Estonia is an example in point. You have a couple of very successful companies, and they create a whole offshoot. You know, from the original Skype, you get the Wise, you get the pipe drives, you get all of this virtuous cycle happening. So of course, 2022 came. Everything stopped. We had companies that were in the middle of fundraising, that saw the fundraising completely collapse. And then everything turned from greed to fear, with a rush to making companies profitable, you know, looking at more unit economics, trying to make most of the money that you raise. And I think that's when capital started having a cost. And for that regard, we are more attractive for founders and for VC funds because you want to complement your equity raise with a little bit more debt that allows you to go further, or as an insurance in case things don't go as planned or take longer, or sometimes opportunistically if you see that, you know, like what Martin was saying about Planet 42, they're active in South Africa, they say that, oh, we could grow in Mexico, it's crisis, no one else can do it today, let's take advantage of it. We don't want to raise equity while we're doing it, we can take debt to grow faster. So for us, we've seen entrepreneurs who are very shrewd, taking advantage of the crisis to create opportunities. And we like those kind of, you know, we call them cockroach entrepreneurs. It's when things are easy and the water is rising, everybody rises with. But when the stuff is a little bit more difficult, you see the true nature of the fighters.
Yeah, definitely. The moments of crisis give us good opportunities to rethink what we are doing and give rise to those startups who are actually resilient. Yep. So what we've seen, of course, in the Baltic scene as well. Now, we actually discussed that in the last two panels already as well, is that debt financing really is something quite still new to our region here because, well, first of all, we follow really the stories of our local scene. The local scene is very close-knit. Everyone knows everyone. You want to hear the success stories, the failure stories, of course, as well. But then you don't hear about the debt financing, and that's why it's really new here still. So what we discussed as well is that it would really make sense to share some practical examples, like when should I be thinking about that? So Planet 42 was one of the cases. They shared it very nicely. But when is the moment when you feel like, okay, they should come to talk with SEB here, or then, of course, look into Bootstrap Europe as well? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. So the debt financing is new. I end up in many meetings explaining how it works and when you should have it. Especially talking to seed stage companies who are not maybe shouldn't be thinking about debt funding in their seed rounds. This is something when you come into an A round, this is when you've passed your product market fit, you are scaling, and you just need money to scale. This is when you should think about venture debt as a product. The venture debt has this, it's two sides of the coin. From one side, you have to repay it. Yeah? So you have to make sure, you have to be sure that you are actually going up rather fast, and your next round will be big enough to repay this debt. Yeah, so this is very important that the debt you've taken is you have a plan how you will repay it. On the other hand, I mean, it's got the super positive side that if you're scaling very fast, you don't have to share equity. So we can substitute one of your investors in your round. SEB can take up to 30%. So one less investor to share the upside with. But of course, you have to have a clear plan for the things you're going for the next round, how you're going to repay the debt. So it's much easier if you are, software, if you're easily scalable, if you're times 2, times 3, times 10 in your revenue, and your next round valuation is going to be so big. Of course, if you're in hardware, you need financing more. But you need to be a bit more strategic to think exactly how you will scale and how you will repay. So then still come and talk to the debt provider. Maybe there is, I don't know, maybe some other alternative ways SEB can think how to finance you, or maybe we can still work out a way how you can be financed there. And I guess we are from the 500,000 to 2 million. Then afterwards, once you probably repay SEB debt, and if you still need venture debt and 2 million is too small, then you talk to Fatou, and you look at a more global financier in your venture financing table. Right, Fatou, that's where you come in?
Yeah, that's what we were discussing. That is pretty complementary, and it's very similar to what you do in equity. You first get local, and then you might have a bit more international investors coming in. The way we think about debt is that it should be complementary to your financing strategy. And as a startup, we split it in two ways. So you have, the revenue generating software type of companies, and there it's growth financing, period. It's the first myth I think we should debunk is that it's not because you haven't managed to raise equity. It's the ones who can raise equity but decide not to do it to avoid dilution. Those are the most successful use cases for that. And you have to have very clear unit economics in your head and think, I'm taking €1 of venture debt, it's going to create €5 of revenue. That €5 is going to be valued €50 of equity value. So the €1 I'm taking initially is producing value. If the unit economics are not robust yet because your go-to-market is not solid, you haven't really tested how to sell your product, do not take it because it's going to ruin your company. It's leverage. So this is something that you really have to think about carefully and take only as much as you need. We compare it a lot with fertilizer. If you put it a little bit on the young plants, it really helps them grow.
Very good parallel. Yes.
Yeah. But if you put too much of it, it stinks. so that's how we would say use it very strategically. And then you have the other side, which is financing intensive, capex intensive. It could be biotech, life science, climate tech business is a good example. Semiconductor, we're doing a lot of that. You need to invest a lot of capex. But then you end up with a very beautiful asset, whether it's intellectual property or hardware or things like that. And then we can land even without revenues because it's clear where the value is being invested.
Very good. You, Pavils, you wanted to add something?
Yes. I mean, we somehow end up with a lot of sort of offers about hardware, or with a significant hardware component for this in the startups, and this is where we really, we as a lender, we really want to have that conversation about the scaling, how exactly you're going to scale, and how exactly do you see the next round developing. So in order to, for example, to talk to SEB, just be prepared that we will have that conversation with you about, show us the next round, paint us a picture, 2, 3, 5 years ahead, how you think of repaying the debt or refinancing the debt through the next round, how you will manage your valuation. Just have it thought out. Yeah, I mean. You can still come talk to us. We will ask you the question, and you can go back and think about it. But that will be a big part of the conversation about that scaling. If you have a hardware component, we'll still talk to you. Sure, we are a bank. We're and we're here, so we're not going anywhere. We'll happily discuss. But that is an important aspect.
And just to touch on that, I'd add that it's a different mindset. Your equity plan and your debt plan. So often we'll talk to teams and they'll show us the equity plan. Okay, this is how I'm going to raise 100 million. And of course, you need to be shooting the lights out and having really big outcomes. And then we're like, okay, can you show us the real business plan? And then they're like, okay, this is the one. We know this one, we will implement it. If we're lucky, we'll do the big one, but minimum case, we'll deliver this, and that's what we size the debt.
Okay, very good. So this is already a very clear tip, is that so you go to investors, you show your dream plan. You come to these guys here, and you show the real plan, because they will see you through. They want to see the actual numbers and facts. Very good. So if there's a question through the Votemo, so from the audience, if a company fails, what happens then with the debt?
What happens then? I mean, what SEB will do, we're a bank, we talk. Do we want your equity? We don't want your equity. We talk. The main thing for us is to cooperate with the founder to find a way out. Yeah. So if you're working with us, we'll give you time to work it out. We want to be a good member of the ecosystem, and we will do our best to have a good outcome for both sides. I mean, of course, it is a debt; it needs to be repaid. But that's something we will discuss with the founder. We'll need cooperation. We have no interest in your equity. We want you to work out the situation. Well. But unfortunately, things do fail. We understand that, and this is why it's important for us at the very beginning, the character of the founder. That if things go not according to how our best scenario is that the founder will do the best to have a good outcome for both sides. That's all we can say. I think that's. But exactly what will be done, it will depend on the case. The main thing is that we'll give you time if if this is what you needed and if this will give you a result.
Fatou, maybe you want to add something on this because you have like a larger portfolio already as well?
Yeah, I think failure is part of the story if you're building something that has never been built. And yesterday we were talking with a VC fund. He said only 40% of, let's say, the seed companies in his portfolio go to the next round, and I think so on. So it's expected that a lot will fail. What is counterintuitive is that in venture debt, very, very few fail, actually. I think with less than 1% of the companies fail, because the ones who are able to raise debt are a very small subset of the ones who raise equity. So it's even harder to raise debt than to raise equity. Therefore, there is a bias, selection bias. The ones who take debt are usually the successful ones. Which helps. But we work very closely with the founders. I think we really have like monthly interactions with them to see the problems ahead. So when we see something coming 6 months ahead, we'll start working with them in advance and saying, okay, have you checked? Your unit economics are decreasing, or there is this issue in this market. Can we work on it now to avoid the failure? And then when we come to really the point where they've given up, their equity investors have given up, and we don't see a way to get them out, then it's really closing it as well as possible. And there you have to think about your customers, your employees, first of all, and then your stakeholders. And it's not a nice experience, but we try to make it as less painful as possible.
Good. Thank you. And maybe you want to share some last tips or recommendations, any takeaways? Well, of course, you from maybe the European side as well, as you see, and well, you meet a lot of Baltic founders. So, what would you recommend to them at current state when they are preparing themselves for either raising investments or coming to talk to you guys?
One thing I'll have to compliment the Baltic founders is that when we had the first investment committee discussion, our investment committee was really pleased with the quality of the material the Baltic founders prepared. So they really spent a lot of time thinking through the scenarios, preparing the story, thinking about various investor questions. Preparation is key. Yes, maybe especially the Baltic companies really need to think even more, coming maybe from slightly smaller countries with slightly smaller investor base. Especially when you go outside the Baltics, you need to be like more prepared, maybe. So yeah, invest time, like the previous speaker said. Invest time. Map out the next 3, maybe even 5 years in an Excel. So it's all scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3. Do a detailed analysis and run through the story several times that you are very comfortable discussing all the things that may happen to you, and unit economics and all your scaling plans and all this. Just good preparation, and but also at the same time come talk to SEB, and we'll happily guide you through the story. We say what we are missing in your story, and start talking to us early. Give us time, and we will sort of coach you through the things that we need, to invest in you.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah.
I think it's the same as if you raise equity. Be prepared, do your homework. For debt, I will give one also very important advice. The best time to raise debt is when you have money.
Yes.
It's counterintuitive, but
the same with equity, actually.
the same with equity. But it's really come in a position of force to negotiate your debt. If you've just raised equity and you have 18 months of runway, things always take longer and cost more than planned. So it's a great time to negotiate a facility. You don't have to draw it. Just make it available, and then at the time when you need it, you can draw it, and it acts like your insurance facility. I would say, yeah, aside from all the traditional fundraising tips, it's really understand what your lender is going to think about. We do think a little bit differently than the equity guys, the two business plans, but we are also participating in the equity upside. So we will never lend to a company that doesn't have equity upside. So don't forget that bit, how you're going to realize it, because we want to be part of the success story also.
Very good, and I love it how we are ending every panel with a core message is that networking is the key.
Absolutely.
So you have to be talking, and this is why we are all here, Latitude 59. So network as much as you can. And of course, you can come and ask already your direct questions about your businesses, both from Pavils and Fatou. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.